This episode of Dopey is brought to you by our friends at Aloe Recovery, located in sunny Southern California, in Silver Lake and Malibu, and one spot on the west side of Los Angeles. Aloe was created by our friend Bob Forrest and his friends, Evan, Jared, and Bob, to create a facility that treats alcoholism and drug addiction with connection and compassion rather than control. They have decades of experience in treating drug addiction, alcoholism, and co-occurring mental health disorders, including severe mental illness. They have amenities you wouldn't believe: surfing, sound bath meditation, yoga, fucking equine therapy. They make a detox that's as comfortable as possible, which we all know is crucial when getting well. So, if you're fucked and you're willing to go to sunny Southern California to get healthy, I highly recommend going to Aloe. This episode of Dopey is also brought to you by a great recovery podcast called Recovery in the Middle Ages, a podcast about two middle-aged suburban dads and their pursuit of life, love, and recovery. Listen as they discuss current topics of interest to the recovery community, including 12-step alt recovery, the newest medical research, and talk about their daily struggle to maintain their recovery and anonymity in the world of soccer moms and PTA meetings. If the neighbors only knew. Find Recovery in the Middle Ages everywhere you find your podcasts and at middleagesrecovery.com. That is middleagesrecovery.com. I was recently on it. Check it out. They did a very thorough, nice job. middleagesrecovery.com. This episode of Dopey is also brought to you by our new sponsor, Amend Apparel. Amend Apparel is a recovery streetwear brand that was started in 2019 after noticing a lack of good design and cool ideas in the recovery apparel market. They have a wide range of products such as hats, t-shirts, and hoodies for men and women, all relating to recovery and what it takes to stay off drugs and alcohol. The designs range from subtle to loud, pretty to offensive, and some are even customizable with your own clean date. Everything you've always wanted in a recovery-based clothing brand. Some of the profits are donated to different recovery-based charities, so know that your purchase goes to help a good cause. You can check them out at amendapparel.com and get an ultra-exclusive 15% off anything in the store by using the code DOPEY when checking out on their website. Now that you feel good, why not look good too? With Amend Apparel. I'm going to buy that shit. So should you. And finally, this episode of Dopey is brought to you by listeners like you in the Dopey Nation. I don't know how to put this in a way that people aren't going to mock me for it, but when you guys support Patreon, it makes Dopey better. It makes it possible that the dream of Dopey can be reality. So if you get anything out of Dopey, kick some money to Dopey Patreon. We've got interviews. We did a video last week. There's music. There's tons of stuff. If you benefit from Dopey, kick down a couple bucks to Dopey Patreon, and I really appreciate it. I'm not going to say that I need to quit my job or anything, but it makes my life easier. It makes Dopey better. And in other news, There's amazing gear at the Dopey store at dopeypodcast.com. The Nick shit is fire, as they say in the street. I'm sure maybe some old people are still saying that shit is fire in the street. And the Knicks have just won 8 straight, so buy the Dopey Knicks shit. There's great hoodies. We're teamed up with some recovering addicts out of Cincinnati, Ohio, called SRO Prince. So go to dopeypodcast.com. I have a bunch of hats. Hit me up. I've got black and white snapbacks, blue and red snapbacks, blue and orange snapbacks, Oy vey hats. There are some new Dopey not snapbacks hats on the Dopey store. So just buy some Dopey gear. Enjoy the spring. Enough of the ads. Here's the fucking show. Hello and welcome to Dopey, the podcast on drugs, addiction, and dumb shit. My name is Dave, and I've made a terrible decision and judgment. Co-hosting on the show today is none other than my father, Alan. Welcome to the show.
Well, hello. Hi, everybody. Co-hosting, let's not use that term. Let's say I'm just here for the ride.
Guest hosting. And I'm having you on the show in this capacity because something insane happened yesterday. And you're part of the story.
Really?
So I want you to be a part of the story.
Wow, what happened?
Something insane happened.
Oh, boy. Is that good or bad?
I don't know.
Insane doesn't sound good.
I would guess it's neither good nor bad, but I will paint a picture. It's early in the morning, and I've parked the car at 750 on 26th Street and 7th Avenue, and I'm heading downtown to the Lower East Side on 7th Avenue. And as always, I'm enjoying the walk, looking around, and you know those buildings on 22nd Street that are dilapidated and abandoned, and one side was apartment buildings that don't exist, and the other side was kind of a cafe covered with like anarchist stickers and crazy art. I see a guy who's painting a mural on the side of that place. And if you know anything about me, I've been on the hunt for a Dopey mural for years, right?
Yes.
And here I am, and I see the guy painting a mural. Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm concentrating.
You're looking at me like you think I'm high or something. You give me that look. Anyway, so I see the dude, and I'm on the phone, and I am like, I got to get off the phone. I'm very interested to talk to the guy painting, because rarely when you see a mural with graffiti, do you see the person doing it, right?
So this is graffiti he's putting on.
He's putting up a mural, a full wall. He's got the full wall, and he's just there, like kind of doing little edges of it. And so I approach the guy, and I say, "Hey, man, is this your mural?" And he says, "Yes." And I said, "I have a podcast. I want a mural." And he says, "Okay." And I go, "My podcast is about drug addiction and drugs and dumb shit." And he goes, "Okay." And I said, "I'm a drug addict in recovery." I don't know, like it's weird. Like he's like very nonplussed about anything I have to say.
Right.
And I'm saying more than I should say, probably.
Yes.
And then he looks at me and he says, "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from here." And he said, "Well, where do you live?" I said, "Well, I live on Long Island." He goes, "Well, where do you used to live?" And I said, "Well, I used to live on the Lower East Side, and I grew up in this neighborhood." And he goes, "Where did you live in this neighborhood?" And he goes, "Did you live in the co-op?" He says.
Wow.
And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Take your mask off," he says.
Wow.
Who is that masked man? Take your mask off. So I take off my mask, and he goes, "Holy shit." And he takes off his mask.
Yeah.
And you know who he was?
I am afraid to ask. Who was he?
When I lived on 24th Street,
Yes.
he was a drug dealer who lived across the hall, and he kept his safe in my apartment. And because he didn't want to ever have girls in the apartment because he'd have drugs, and he didn't want anyone to know that he was selling drugs.
He was living in your building?
he was living across from his friend was living across from my apartment, and he kept his drugs there. Then he met me, and he asked me if he could keep a safe full of drugs in my apartment, and I said,
This is not a good meeting.
I said, for money or for drugs. And he said, we all thought you were dead. He said, first thing he said was, we saw them take your shit out of the apartment. And no, the after you left, when they cleaned out the rest of the shit. And he said, I took some paintings home, blah, blah, blah. It turned out this kid, whose graffiti name is Say No, as in say no to drugs, was a drug addict who got sober. And he's 5 years sober now.
He is not a kid, though.
No, he's like 40 years old. But
correct.
he was a kid when I knew him. Then he tells me that they all thought I was dead, and that they all called me Slam. And I figured they called me Slam because I would shoot heroin. But no, they called me Slam because every time I went into the apartment, I would slam the door.
That's right.
And I was so loud. And then he told me that they were sure I had died. Then he told me that one time he came into the apartment. You know, he went to the apartment and he sees you in there cleaning up the apartment.
That's right.
And he says, oh, and then you're crying, cleaning up the apartment. And you said, you, come in here, you say to this kid.
Really?
And you say, I need you to help me clean the apartment. And he goes, okay. And this is that crazy story, Dad, where you had to clean out the apartment.
I certainly remember cleaning out the apartment. I don't remember asking anybody there to help me, though that's possible. And I don't understand how he walked out with a painting. What was that all
No,
about?
the painting was in the garbage, and he just took it out of the garbage.
Yes.
But the safe full of drugs was in the apartment while you were in the apartment. And I think he saw it as his opportunity to get his drugs back. So you invite him into the apartment to clean the apartment. Then he says he has to go to the bathroom.
Maybe I asked him, maybe I said, would you like to get paid to help me with? Maybe I was trying to get help and was going to pay him. Maybe that's the
Well, you don't remember any of it.
I certainly, listen, the part about...
You were distraught.
Destroyed. I told the Dopey Nation the story of me cleaning the apartment. It was pretty awful. Very bad story. Anyway, so that's amazing. So that's what this guy does.
Then he says that when you were in the apartment, he grabbed a blanket, threw it over his safe, went into the bathroom, took all of his drugs out of the safe. I think maybe he helped you clean a bit. And then he said you were crying and how bad he felt, and then he left. And then later, when the maintenance guy was there, they told him that I had died. And him and his friends thought I had died. And the craziest thing was that I wouldn't have remembered this guy in a million years. And he remembered me and thought I was dead.
Well, when you took off the mask, he
said he recognized my eyes and my voice.
Right, but you didn't recognize him, did you?
Even when he took off the mask,
No.
I could see it. I have such a bad memory, though. I have a real hard time recognizing people.
Well,
It's probably all the drugs I did.
yeah, it could be. Yeah, that could be a reason. However, so the conversation kept going, and
He has 5 years clean.
Yeah.
His graffiti name is Say No, as in say no to drugs. Maybe he'll do a mural for Dopey, and maybe he'll come on Dopey. I got like 20 blocks away when I realized I should have recorded the meeting.
Yeah.
And then I called him, and he said he wouldn't do it.
Oh,
Because he had been up all night painting a thing.
Does he just find a wall somewhere?
No, he knew the owner of the building, and
So
he
in
got
other words,
permission.
this could be because there's a little controversy about stickers for the Dopey Nation. This
Stickergate.
whatever you came up with.
Stickergate.
Slapping.
That
on.
wasn't me. That was somebody in the Dopey Nation.
anyway-
I came up with Stickergate 2021.
I don't want a mural gate. I mean, if you're going to do a Dopey mural, it should be, officially where it's approved by the owner, et cetera. It would be very, very nice to have a mural.
What is your opinion? I mean, that's something that I haven't really talked about on the show, which is that through the passion of the Dopey street team, Scott Wick, who's one of the big muckety mucks in the Dopey Nation came up with the idea to have everyone put up stickers to count to number 300 in honor of the 300th episode, which is coming up. A couple people in the Dopey Nation got their feathers ruffled because, as we all know, it's illegal to put up stickers.
And obviously, in certain places, it's certainly illegal.
It's illegal to put up a sticker on anything that's not yours. And if you know this or you don't know this, I got arrested putting up an Oy vey sticker on the corner of...
I thought that was a story you made up.
No, it's true.
I thought that was your story to me because you didn't want to tell me what really happened.
No, I'll tell you what... You want to hear what really happened?
No, I don't know.
This is one of my favorite stories. I'm leaving...
Yeah. Okay, we're going to hear it then, I guess.
Dopey Nation, this is what I want. If you're putting up stickers, be careful.
Oh, okay.
I want the Dopey Nation to be careful. Some of you might have heard this story. Some of you might have not heard this story. I was newly sober. I probably had 2 months clean, maybe a month clean, maybe 3. I don't know. It was early on. And maybe more. Who knows? It was early on.
Maybe you don't know, yes.
I was playing with my band at the time, and we had a rehearsal set up that day. And I had started my Oy vey business, which was very little business. We had some T-shirts and stickers, and we sold some T-shirts. And I wanted to put stickers up everywhere because I thought they were cool. And I was walking home from Katz's, putting up Oy vey stickers on the Lower East Side. And I put up an Oy vey sticker, I want to say on the corner of Norfolk and Rivington Street.
Yes.
And a cop comes over and arrests me. Fucking arrests me. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I put up this sticker." He fucking arrested me, handcuffed, threw me in a car, took me to jail.
For putting on the sticker.
Putting up one Oy vey sticker.
So this is a bad thing.
He puts me in the police car. He takes me to the jail on wherever the precinct is, in the holding cell. Throws me in there. And do you remember I had guilted you into buying me a Bronx Zoo hooded sweatshirt?
Yes.
With Nora one time when we went to the Bronx Zoo.
True.
And I have a nice winter jacket and I have my Bronx Zoo hoodie. And in the cell next door, there was a 16-year-old girl who got arrested stealing someone's winter jacket in her high school.
Oh, you did tell me the story.
And she had been jealous and stolen the jacket, and she was like 16, and they wouldn't. Then she wanted to go, and the cop said that she could leave. I was there for like 4 hours for an Oy vey sticker, and the cop said she could go, but she had no one to pick her up. And she wouldn't leave because she was scared because she lived in the Bronx or Harlem or something. And she was scared to go. And the guy's like, "Listen, if you don't go now, you're going to spend the night in jail." And she didn't have a jacket. And it was like 20 degrees. So what did I do? I gave her the Bronx Zoo hoodie.
Wow.
The most selfless act of my life.
The one I bought you.
I think you should buy me a new one. Yeah. Anyway, so Dopey Nation, if you're putting up stickers...
Beware.
Be aware. Be careful. Be cautious. And how crazy is the mural thing?
Well, listen, the mural, what exactly would you have on it? I mean, what would be the purpose of it?
I am in talks now with 3 muralists. 2 muralists in New York, one of which was the drug dealer who used to put his stuff in my apartment. The other one is a very famous muralist on the Lower East Side, and another one is a muralist in Cincinnati. This is my new big thing. Before Dopey dies, I want Dopey murals, art. And I think they're going to say, "Spread love the Dopey way."
And is there going to be some like a website on there? I mean, is there a way of
no
of them?
No.
What do you mean?
Listen, you don't think artistically. You can't put websites on murals.
I don't treat.
That's not how you do it. But how crazy is it that this is one of my favorite, for whatever reason, this story of the dude who kept his shit in my apartment.
Yeah.
I always found that to be a crazy story. In general, that there was
he got it out. Somehow he got the stuff out.
He got it out under your nose.
With me standing there.
Under your nose.
That's how much I know.
You don't think that's an incredible story?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Now, you mean you may get a mural in Cincinnati?
I want Dopey murals everywhere. I'm also in talks with a few artists in California, but I think it's too expensive.
Well, I mean... Oh, they're not going to do it for the love of Dopey, then. In other words, you got to pay these guys, huh?
Of course I'm going to pay them. You got to pay for everything. What don't you pay for?
The air you're breathing? I don't know. The sun is shining, looking out at the sky. You don't pay for
The
that.
guy in Cincinnati offered to do it for free, but I said, no, we have to pay him.
Oh, all right.
You have to.
Listen, these artists need money. that's
Artists
for sure.
need support.
Absolutely.
But are you not blown away by that story?
I think it's amazing. It's amazing that he even recognized you with your eyes and your voice, and it is. It's
Then he took
amazing.
my picture, sent it to one of his old drug dealing friends named Doug, and he wrote, "Back from the dead."
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Well, yeah.
And the fact is that he's clean too is also amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So this week on the show,
Yes.
we have cat behaviorist, author, and TV star, not to mention Jew from the Upper West Side, Jackson Galaxy.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's not his real name.
I think it is.
He was born.
No, his real name, I found out, is Richard Kirshner.
Oh, okay.
But he changed his name to Jackson Galaxy because he was a big-time musician. And he was like a weirdo musician guy in the 90s or whatever.
But that's his real name now? As in,
He's changed his name to Jackson Galaxy. Cat guy. Cat behaviorist. Cat doctor. Whatever. Cat shrink.
Yeah, well, anybody who has a cat certainly needs a shrink, yes. Listen, I don't have good experiences with cats.
Well, enough with the talk.
Yes.
If you need a shrink and you're really looking to get some help, I have to suggest checking out BetterHelp.com. That was a good segue, though, right?
Yeah, you really snuck that in there very well. You know, it is amazing that you met that guy. I mean, this is, and of course I don't remember. It's like almost 20 years ago.
But now you're going to interrupt the ad to be amazed about
No,
that?
I mean, it's amazing. And the guy who was taking his drugs right under my nose also, I guess I was busy cleaning. I guess.
And weeping. That's the best part of the story is that he pilfered the drugs right from under you. Who knows what other family heirlooms he might have taken out of that place. Now, Dad, what interferes with your happiness?
Well, being alone sometimes does. Not being healthy, hurting my shoulder.
All right, I'm not really.
other
That's
things.
a rhetorical question.
Oh, you don't want the answer then?
Is something preventing you from meeting your goals? BetterHelp will assess you.
This is I'm in the middle of the ad now. Is that it?
Can you just let me do that?
Yeah, do the ad.
BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You connect in a safe and private online environment. It is incredibly convenient, and you can start communicating in under 24 hours. It is not self-help. It is professional counseling. You send a message to your counselor anytime. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses, plus you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. You can do this all without having to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. And it is, of course, totally anonymous and totally confidential is the word I'm looking for. They are licensed professional counselors who are capable of dealing with loneliness, anxiety, fear, lack of memory,
All the stuff that I suffer
relationships, sleeping issues, trauma, anger, family conflicts, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer matters, grief, self-esteem issues. Remember, it's all confidential. It is affordable. So many people get help using BetterHelp, so check it out. If you listen and you want 10% off, you get 10% off by visiting betterhelp.com/dopeypodcast. Again, over 1 million people have taken charge of their mental health, and that is betterhelp.com/dopeypodcast. I would check it out. And now, the great Jackson Galaxy from the Upper West Side via Los Angeles. But before we play Jackson Galaxy, I need to be honest with you guys. I need to warn you. This is the disclaimer. The sound on Jackson Galaxy isn't perfect. It's got problems. And the reason it's not perfect is because I'm too afraid to open up the boxes of gear that I have. So just bear with me. Listen carefully. He's an amazing guest. I promise you next week I'm going to open up the new gear. Here is Jackson Galaxy.
Starbucks parking lot here because the gardener showed up at my house.
If that's okay with you, it's okay with me. I'm sorry to put you in the car.
I'm all good.
There's a beautiful glare coming down, so it looks like you're drenched in sunshine and heaven and shit.
I am drenched in the Los Angeles glory. Yeah, no, it's. I'm totally jealous of you, man. I don't know if you know I'm a New Yorker, and I have not been home. This is the longest I've not been home ever in all my life. So it's been a little over a year. So it's.
At the moment, you're not missing out. I mean, the experience of being in New York, because I grew up in Manhattan also. So, the experience of being in Manhattan during COVID in some ways is a lot like what it was like being in Manhattan when we were kids. Because I think we're about the same age because things are shut down and fucked up. And that's exciting. You know what I mean? Because Manhattan became so fucking bougie.
Totally. My cousin called me and she's like, my cousin is 70 now, and she was like, I don't remember the last time I heard the birds while I walked down West End Avenue. So no, I need to go home, man. I need to get back.
So,
LA is what it is.
Come home. It's still here.
Hey, man, as soon as I'm getting my second shot in a week. And then, yeah, man, it's on the horizon.
I'm at my father's house right now. My father lives in Chelsea on 27th Street. This is where I grew up, and I live on Long Island now. And my day job is I work at Katz's Deli. So if you need anything, just let me know. I do shipping and special events. So if you want anything, I'll hook it up.
Yeah, man, if this was me 15 years ago, I'm vegan now. So.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. I forgot about that.
Well, it's not awesome when sometimes you crave, Katz's pastrami. But I grew up across the street from Zabar's, so
Where'd you go to high school?
Columbia Prep.
Nice. Okay. I went to Hunter, and when I would come up to 94th Street and see all the kids going to Columbia Prep when I went across the park. So
I failed the test to get into Hunter. Otherwise, I would have been there.
You know how it is. I got into Hunter. I got into Hunter when I was 4, and I think they asked me to leave when I was 11, and I refused. I refused to leave, basically.
It's fucking hilarious.
So I don't know if you know. I don't know if you know about our show. Our show is.
I do.
Oh, you do.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
I did a little research.
Very cool. Very nice. So I'm going to introduce you. I'm just going to start. I'm going to give you a proper introduction.
Yeah.
I think you deserve a proper introduction.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello and welcome to Dopey, the podcast on drugs, addiction, and dumb shit. And my name is Dave. And the cops are out in force in the neighborhood. I hear the sirens going by, so forgive us, Dopey Nation. We have a real TV star this week. I think we have definitely the first cat behaviorist ever on the show. He's a cat behaviorist, cat boy, cat doc, TV star, sober alcoholic, sober recovering addict, and possible food addict, but we'll get into all that. His name is Jackson Galaxy. It's an honor to have you on the Zoom. How are you?
Thank you, Dave. And what's funny is I hear the sirens and it made me homesick.
Right, of course, of course. How long have you been out there?
I moved out here in 2008, I believe. Yeah. But it's been a minute since I lived in. I grew up in New York, but it was way too expensive for me to live there any other time. So it's been a while since I was full time.
See, now you could probably be bi-coastal, but where would you put the rooster is the question.
Well, you know about the rooster. we have 2 chickens. He was going to be the third. We thought the things when you get them really little, you don't know if they're going to be male or female until they're about 7 weeks old or something like that. And we were just praying that it wasn't going to be a boy because, we live in the middle of L.A. The cock-a-doodle-doo will get the cops on you and all that. And he turned out to be a boy, and he turned out to be, we counted one day, and the record of cock-a-doodle-doos in one day was about 120. And so now he's at the most amazing rescue in the whole wide world waiting for adoption. We're trying to get him adopted now because, couldn't be in our house, man. His name is Salvador.
Well, I lived in Echo Park for, 7 years. And there was a rooster next door crowing all fucking day, every day, probably like 100 times a day. And it just seemed like part of the culture. How does it happen that a New York City Upper West Side kid becomes an animal guy? Like, how does that even happen?
You know, honestly, it was never on my radar. Like, I loved animals, but not in a way that, like, I was aware that I had a thing with them, you know. Didn't even grow up with cats. I had a dog. And I wanted to be a rock star. And that was it, man. I mean, from the time I can't even remember the first time where I was like, oh, yeah, I want to be in front of an audience, you know. And so it wasn't until I was living in Boulder, I had gone to, you know, college and grad school and made my way across the country, wound up in Boulder. And I needed a job, you know, and I had worked every shitty job in both, just horrible jobs. And a job came up, you know, scooping shit out of cages. I was like, yeah, I'll take that. And it was very soon after that all my coworkers started making fun of me because all the cats were following me around. I mean, it was really that sort of cartoonish that I would sit down and the cats would just gather around me, and that's how it started.
Isn't that so crazy? I mean, I read your book. I read Cat Daddy. I read it in record time. I mean, I think you have like 5 books now. What happened was, I'm embarrassed because we had a mutual friend who was like, oh, you should get this guy, Jackson Galaxy, on the show. I was like, definitely, let's do it. And I start reading about you, and I see all your books, and I figured Cat Daddy was a cat behavior book. And I was listening to you on another podcast, and I was like, oh, fuck, it's a memoir. I need to read this thing fast. I got it yesterday. So like I'm like speed reading, speed listening to your book, and it's a beautiful book. First of all, I really enjoyed it. The thing that I mean, like, because you talk about how music was, you heard music and you knew that was your dream, right? And then you get this shitty job, and you become the Pied Piper, the Cat Daddy, the Cat Boy, whatever. How does that even, but I'm going to ask you again, how does it happen? It just did? Like, was there anything in your head that said, maybe I'm interested in animals? Like, what was the thing that led you to the shitty job in the first place?
It was as simple as every shitty job I worked put me in contact with the worst of humanity. And I was sick of people, man. And the other thing was, you think, okay, the Humane Society, I could be of some use somehow, and maybe not just get a paycheck, but just be able to, you know, I don't know, just feel better about myself at night when I go to bed, you know, and it was, yeah, I mean, it was just that. And really the cat thing was more, believe me, I pushed back at every sort of cosmic turn because I know what I wanted out of life, you know, and I moved to Boulder just to have like a low cost, low pressure life where I could get a band together and make a run, you know, and the thing was that part of your job at this shelter, and this is the reality in most shelters, is that, you know, if there's killing that has to happen in that place, you're doing it. So when an opportunity presented itself to say, well, maybe you can not kill this cat. Maybe you can actually get this cat adopted because of something that you're good at. That was it. You know what I mean? That just set me into that place. But I didn't release the idea of rock and roll actually, the only thing that led me to have to was when my show started. Then I didn't have any time. I couldn't do it anymore, you know? So, but yeah, that's pretty much what got me there. Like I said, there was an opening there, like this sort of, yeah, you know, cosmic opening. And thankfully it's one thing that I didn't fuck up.
I think that's awesome.
Because I fucked up everything else, man. I really did.
No, I get it. The thing that I'm taken with in that is that you were an addict, an alcoholic, active, you know, rocking out, playing shows, having fun, living the dream. and not self-centered enough to not want to be of service. Like, I think that's interesting. Like that you had like some notion that you wanted to be of service when you're in active addiction. You know, like I think that probably set you up for recovery really nicely, that you had that built in.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I don't remember. I know. Yeah, no, because really at that point when I got that job, I was pretty bad. You know what I mean? And it got a lot worse. I mean, I had the curse of, you know, the quote high functioning addict. You know what I mean? Like that I fooled most of the people most of the time, and until I didn't. But yeah, no, I think you're right though. I think it was sort of a nice little nugget that got placed in there because, as you saw in the book, I mean, honestly, and I know that people think that this is just like a, you know, publicity talking point or whatever, but the honest to God truth is that if it wasn't for these moments of connection with these animals and wanting more and feeling a sense of stewardship, I would absolutely have been dead 20 years ago. Absolutely, positively, you know? So paying off a cosmic debt.
When did you first know that you were an addict?
Well, I mean, you said it at the top, and it's interesting. I mean, it's just something I've been exploring more lately because of circumstances. But I think food is my primal. It's my original. So yeah, no, I mean, I have very early memories, and I would say some of my earliest memories were discovering the buzz around food. You know, I mean, I grew up in a pretty volatile household, at least that time, you know, early. And it was just a way I remember feeling a buzz. I remember feeling okay through food. And a sense of, sort of like everything's going to be all right type of vibe, you know? And yeah, food is the thing that has almost killed me as surely as drugs or alcohol, you know? I mean, and it's been challenging, you know, over the past year. It's sort of reared its head again. So yeah, it's been challenging, but that's, I mean, in terms of drugs and alcohol, that didn't come into play until, you know, like I would say I was probably 14, 15 when I started to discover, oh, there's other places to get this vibe. Yeah, and then it just progressed, you know. So by the time, you know, I was in Boulder, so at that point I was in my mid-20s, something like that. It was everything, you know. I mean, I was exploding weight-wise, and I was loaded all the time. I mean, it just, everything came together, you know.
Was choosing Boulder drug related at all? Because it's such a party town and such like a hippie stoner town, whatever.
No, you know what's funny is that my girlfriend at the time, I went to grad school in Iowa, at University of Iowa, and I had graduated, and she was in undergrad, and she was a year behind me, and she was from Chicago. She was from the Chicago area. So we're like, yeah, let's just move to Chicago. And I got to Chicago, we went like apartment hunting, and I love Chicago, man. I don't know what the hell was wrong with me, but we went to visit a friend of hers, and we're having lunch, and I had a complete crazy paralyzing anxiety attack. And I'm like, I can't move here, man. I can't, no, this is wrong. This is wrong. And she was just trying to calm me down. And she was like, well, listen, I just spent 3 years in Boulder. That's a really nice place, you know, and you may want to think about that. And I was like, yep, that's where we're going. I never saw the place. I didn't know. All I know is it wasn't New York. It wasn't LA. I didn't have the emotional sort of wherewithal to survive that kind of energy. And I figured, why not? Let's give it a whirl. It was only supposed to be a stopover, man. It was not supposed to be 15 years, but that's thanks to, you know, bottoming, getting sober, and trying to become whole again before I moved someplace else, you know?
How tied together was the music and the getting high and the drinking?
I mean, they were one, you know? I mean, I think this is something that, you know, when you hear stories about people getting sober, they tend to disown the whole thing, and which I think is a mistake. And you know, I was an intensely creative person for the most time that I was getting loaded, until obviously there's that tipping point where you can't function. But yeah, good stuff came of it. And also, you know, as somebody who is, I discovered early on in life that I'm more comfortable on stage than off. Like, I'm more home and more myself when I'm on stage than when I'm off. And what you wind up doing is you realize that different types of high will keep you there after you leave stage, you know? So the before and the after, it all just became one thing. But I mean, I think there's a reason why so many artists wind up addicts, you know?
I know that, you know, I was I'm an amateur musician and a songwriter and somebody that always loved it. And I know that when I was getting high, writing was way easier for me, like writing songs.
Absolutely.
Like, I didn't have to think about it. I didn't worry about what I was saying or what it meant. And when it came out, I was like, that sounds kind of like what I wanted to. And in sobriety, like, I can make podcasts and I can think of ideas and stuff, but I can't write songs anymore because I get hung up on lyrics and shit. And do you find that was something that happened with you when you got sober in terms of songwriting?
100%. 100%. I mean, I mean, my songwriting production just fell off the cliff. And I think that's also tied in, like, I was also an incredibly, when I was loaded, and this is a very common story, but when I was loaded, I was the life of the fucking party. I mean, I was so comfortable because whatever social situation I was in, I was on stage, I felt like I was. The getting sober, I have never in all my years in and out of sobriety been able to get comfortable without the lubricant. You know what I mean? Socially. And I think that goes for the artistic side of me as well, that whether it's writing music or writing lyrics, I get so in my head, and not in a good way. And back then it was like whatever came out of me, I considered it to be gold. And honestly, even with the benefit of hindsight, I remember the stuff I wrote in that time, and it was really good. But it's hard, man. I mean, it's hard to engage your imagination and your muse in a way that you're not thinking about, am I being crazy? Is this right? Is this okay? All of those little voices, which when you're using are silenced, you know?
It's like the great graphic equalizer in your brain. Like, one thing is up, another thing is down. It's like when you were active and using in Boulder, was the eating thing out of control, or was it?
Yeah, man.
Okay, so you were going off with everything when you were going off.
And when I got sober the first time, and of course, I made the mistake of not having a sponsor for the first, almost year. And so I just transferred, and I stopped drinking, and I stopped using drugs, and I inflated. My record weight was 410 pounds. I was dying. I wound up in the hospital. One of the most embarrassing things was getting carted out of my cheap ass apartment. Like, meaning like the stairs to get there were like almost fire escape. And I had to get carted out of there on a stretcher, because I was having chest pains and That's all you got to say when you call, and they're like, "Don't move," and they had to carry me out of there. But it took like 3 guys to carry me. It was quite a while till I put 2 and 2 together. It took me a while, because honestly, there isn't a ton of overlap between the drug and alcohol community and the eating community. There really isn't. Those programs feel sometimes really mutually exclusive, and it always felt weird to belong to one and be ashamed of the other, you know? So yeah, no, I blew up.
When you gained all that weight, did you, like, I know that for myself, right? I eat compulsively often, and that the only way that I don't eat compulsively is if I use what I learn in 12-step for food. You know what I mean? Like, the only way that I can get grounded is by using exactly the same thing that got me grounded with drugs. And like, it didn't come naturally to me, you know, in the first 5 years that they were connected. How did that work out for you?
I just don't think that people get it, that you can't just put the plug in the jug. You know, you gotta eat. You know, you have to, in order to apply the principles, you still have to dance with the devil every single day, and that is ridiculously hard. To this day, like I said, this past year has been a real challenge for me, and I, as solid as my recovery is right now when it comes to drugs and alcohol, I just resist it with food. It's almost like, please don't take away my thing. You know, this is my thing. And I'm not doing it consciously, or I haven't done it consciously this year, but it's fucking insidious. It really is. Food is a tough one.
Let's talk about this for a second, okay? Like, I've been trying to diet, right? I've been trying to keto. I've been trying to do this, and this. And I can find myself sticking to it, you know, for months at a time. And if I break any of it, it breaks down completely. Like, the second I take the morsel of fucking chocolate, I'm like, fuck it, and I eat. Like, it's like I really struggle with that. Like, moderation. Like, how do you find moderation with it?
Look, one of the things that really helped me was I met my wife. My wife is a true animal activist, advocate. She lives and dies for these guys. And she was the one who taught me, hey, listen, why is it just cats and dogs that deserve your attention and your affection and your advocacy? And so she really ushered me into a new way of thinking in terms of what I could do for all animals, and part of that was going vegan. So as soon as I went vegan, weight just came off me. So it's easier to that degree because my eating is grounded in, you know, my love for animals and not wanting to hurt them. So there's that. But that said, I got trigger foods just like anybody else, man. I know that if I pop open a bag of potato chips, I'm done. It's like you with that piece of chocolate. If I open up a bag of potato chips, you can check in on me 2 months later, and I will have gained 20 pounds. Because it's not just chips, it's what they represent, you know. And it's that sneaking a bag of chips in my car or something like that, making sure it's there. Like, you do the same shit that you would do if it was a bottle of vodka, that you're just like, do I have my emergency bottle down here? And honestly, I'm sure there are people listening to this going, oh, please. Like, you can't compare alcohol to a bag of fucking potato chips. But yes, you can.
Especially when you're 450 pounds. You know,
I'm saying, man, I've overdosed numerous times. I've come close to dying from drugs and alcohol. I have come just as close, if not closer, because of what food did to me, or what I did with food. You know?
The way you described it in the book, I thought was incredibly powerful, where you said, if I gain 60 pounds, I might as well say I'm dead. You know what I'm saying? You were like, if I gain 60 pounds, I might as well gain 200 and it's over. You know what I mean? It's just a very powerful thing to hear or to read. And like, you know, and it's funny because today is 420. Today is April 20th, you know,
No.
National Stoner Day. And when I used to smoke weed, I would always like be like, every day is 420. Like, I don't, you know,
Totally.
I was a very big lover of marijuana, and we have this audience. And I'm trying to be incredibly inclusive of everybody in the audience, like people who are like junkies who smoke weed as part of their recovery, or meth heads or crack heads or whoever, and whatever makes them feel okay. I know that if I smoked weed, I think it would become, I would do it alcoholically. You know, it's just how I am. Like, and the moderation is so tricky. And I think that's the craziest thing about food addiction is like it's not, you can't starve yourself, right? You can't say, I'm not going to eat. You can't do that, right? So like, how do those things equate?
I mean, and by the way, I don't know if you can see me or not anymore. Can you see me?
You're frozen, but I see you. You look very stoic. There's a nice beam of sunshine.
I might be stoic for a minute here. My iPad, which was resting on my dashboard, is now got too hot, so now it has to cool down. We're just kind of screwed technically today, but as long as I look stoic, then we're all good.
You look good.
All right. Well, and your last question was, sorry, I was futzing with my iPad.
It was really just like another look at like how moderation serves some drug addicts in recovery. It never served me. I could never use drugs moderately.
Yeah, man, there's no way. And I mean, when you think about now with how, and I'm with you, man. I mean, if whatever iteration of weed works for people, you know, whether it's, you know, I mean, you know, whether it's edibles for whatever, if it's CBD, whatever the hell it is, that I'm sure that's fine. I am with you. I cannot moderate. I know myself. When I go into that place, and whether it is drugs or alcohol or food or whatever the hell it is, I am in trouble. And there is no, I will go out. And that has happened because shit snuck up on me, man. I mean, I have not been sober since Boulder. I mean, I've relapsed a couple of times, and yeah, I mean, it's just it's sneaky, man.
Totally. What was the worst it got for you with drugs and alcohol? I mean, I was like you in that Klonopin is a huge part of my story. Like, I'm a benzo freak.
Oh, no way. Really?
Yeah, like I used to just like eat Klonopin. I would say eat Klonopin, not take Klonopin, because I would eat it whenever I had it, and I would get it every day, and I'd get high dosages. So I could really relate to that part of your experience. But I love for Dopey to get the worst of everybody's fucking experience. So what was the worst it was for you in Colorado? Like, what was the bottom of the bottom?
The bottom of the bottom for me was the amount of Klonopin that I was consuming. You know, I was getting it from multiple doctors. I was taking it literally. I mean, it could bring down a rhino, the amount I was taking, and I was going through a ton of weed, and I was drinking on an average day. You know what the funny thing is at one point I was like, well, you know, I'm just going to drink wine, and I fancied myself some kind of a wine connoisseur, but you know, it was like, oh, maybe I'll try this Shiraz and see it. But of course, I would go through 3 bottles a night. So there was that combo, which led me to almost killing myself a few times, and my band was in a shambles because I, as sort of the leader of the band, couldn't barely function. There are some recordings. Thank God this was all before, like, you know, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, YouTube, that you can't access these recordings. But I thought I was so on it, and you could hear it in my voice, man. I was just detached and slurring, and Yeah, man, it was a bad time. It was a bad time, and I think the thing that's so, to this day, that I work through the shame about is that the animals in my care suffered. You know, I put myself in situations that could have harmed them, and I still have a hard time. Listen, all the people that I've made amends to, and all the, but you can't really make amends to the animals, so that made it hard.
Well, it's a living amend.
It is.
Now, you grew up. Are you Jewish?
I am.
So
Upper West Side Jew.
Yeah, you're an Upper West Side Jew. You come from the place where anxiety is part of our blood work. So like,
yeah, that's why. I mean, it's so funny. I don't know if you've watched much of Mrs. Maisel, but like the second that show came on, I was like, oh my God, it is my people. It's the Catskills. It's the Upper West Side. It's it's delis, and I was brought back. But yes, that's me.
The voices in it, it's exactly what. Because how old are you?
I am going to be 55 next week.
So you're a few years older than me. I'm going to be 47, but it's close enough.
Close enough.
So we get to. That's what Mrs. Maisel is like. What family parties were when we were kids. That's what it. That's what it feels like for me. And my drug of choice. It's funny because I became a terrible heroin addict. But whenever it was over, it was the Klonopin and the Xanax that I knew suited me the most. I pretended weed did it for me, and then I pretended that dope did it for me. But the Klonopin and the Xanax just treated my neuroses so perfectly that it was just and you described it in the book so well. That that when you take that, you will be warm, you will be ready, and everything will be okay. What was the first time you stumbled into the land of Benzos?
Well, and I describe it in the book, and there are a couple of parts in that. There's three that I can remember in that book that were so hard to write and even harder to record the audio for. That was one of them, and because I knew it was, so I was really suffering in terms of my mental health, and of course, folks like that, like me, we self-medicate, and that's what I was doing, and but it wasn't working, and my anxiety and my depression were just so bad, and so there was this day I was working. I was a coffee roaster and a barista, and I called and I had this emergency stash that my doctor prescribed of Klonopin. He said, just listen, if you find yourself in a really bad spot, take this. And I remember I took my coffee break at my coffee job, and I go outside and I call my girlfriend and I said, get that stash, bring it over here. I'm going into the well right now, and I don't, this is bad. So she comes over, gives me a Klonopin, and she sat with me for that half hour or so. And when it hit me, it was like, and I'm not saying this in any light way, it was like when people say, I saw Jesus or whatever, it took it away. And the next thing I remember was looking up and seeing my girlfriend crying because she knew in that moment she lost me.
Totally.
She knew me well enough, and she knew it. She knew it. And sure enough, within a month from then, maybe 2 months, she had moved back to Chicago. It was over. So it was that was it for me, man. I found it, and I was not going to let it go. So yeah, shit is. People don't, maybe now folks are starting to figure it out that, heroin gets a bad rap and for some reason Klonopin doesn't. But having tried both, let me tell you, that did it for me, like you're saying. But it was a really hard thing I had never really talked about it until I had to in the book.
Right.
And you know, so yeah, that was the first time.
The craziest thing with that is because I probably bought 90% of my drugs, from dealers or on the street or whatever. And whenever I found myself at a psychiatrist's office and they were writing me a script, I remember feeling so happy, so joyful that this doctor was going to give me access to this feeling. And you had two doctors. Like, did you feel guilt, or was it just all joy? Like, or did you believe the hype? Did you believe the hype that it was medicine?
I was, that's a great question, man. I mean, there was, by the way, I'm trying to get you back on Zoom. I don't know if you see me.
Oh, I see you. I'm sorry. We're back. Hold on. Here we go. This is exciting.
We're almost back.
So as a drug user, right, who gets a script for Klonopin, like, you're fucking high, right? Like, or is it like, isn't it funny when medication gets you high? It's like the funniest thing.
Funniest or funnest? I mean,
both.
Both. I mean, I was only aware of what I needed to do to get it. So I would get this joy because I'd get one over on the doctors. And every time I'd fill that script, and every time, by the way, there was also getting it past the pharmacist, because I had to, somehow get it past them as well. And every time I did, man, I was just like, yeah, I did it. You know what I mean? And then I would go home and I would be okay. I mean, and I got to tell you, the withdrawals from Klonopin were just, I should have gone inpatient and I didn't, but man, I mean, I will never forget that, that feeling that when I had to kick, and I was on so much that I had to kick over a period of like 3 months.
Sure.
Because they kept saying I was going to go into seizures and whatever. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't have a conscious memory of, like, a self-conscious memory of, like, what am I doing here? It was just at that point, I was just thrilled whenever I got a fresh bottle,
Yes, it's thrilling, and I
mean, no different from, like, I mean, I remember my dealer, my street dealer at the time, not my doctor, but it was the same feeling. I got to hunt that dude down, and then you'd have to sit with him and listen to his badass music for like an hour, and kiss his ass, and so that you can get like the top shelf stuff and not the ditchweed. And like, it was the same thing. And you would leave there and you would have your bag and it would be the top shelf stuff, and you'd go home. And by the way, at that point, I don't share with anybody. I mean, it was me and my sort of running mate, and it was just us two. We would not share. People wanted to come over. We'd hide it, textbook,
I totally know. I had so many seizures kicking benzos because I would take too many and I'd run out and I wouldn't be able to get them, and I had a million seizures. It sounds like you avoided seizing. Sounds like you had enough Klonopin to avoid.
Isn't that funny though? Because I'm such a good boy when it comes to taking medicine.
That's
as long as they were like, just take this much and it won't kill you, I would take that much. But I would, be looking at the clock. I'd be like, oh, I got 3 hours. I have to wait 3 hours. I was good.
That's awesome, because I mean, my memory is so Swiss cheese, probably just because of seizures and benzos. How is your memory of the benzo period? Because it's not good. Not good. It's not that.
Oh, man. There's about and it wasn't even, the benzos weren't the thing that absolutely did it. It was, I was kitchen sink at the time. I was totally into psychedelics as well, doing a lot of acid and a lot of mushrooms and whatever else, and on top of all that other stuff. There's about a good solid, I would say, 2-year period that you could come up to me and say, don't you remember, we did this, we played here, and we played in front of 1,000 people, and blah, blah, blah. And I would have no memory. Like, it's scary. It's scary. There's a couple of years there where I just don't remember much. And it was weird because I'm trying to write this book and I'm trying to come as clean as I possibly can. And, my memory was wiped clean. I don't.
That's kind of like, I was like thinking about that. Like, how does he remember everything? Because I'm trying to like get an idea for a book and I go back in my head and it's like white. There's nothing there. And it's crazy. It's such a weird experience. Another thing that I really enjoyed in your story is when you got sober, that you weren't willing to take Klonopin off the table at first. So because it was prescribed and you could, so was it like, I'm not letting go of this, or this is medication? You know what I mean? Like,
I think, on the conscious level, it was the latter, and on the subconscious, it was the former, because I think one of the most devastating things for me was when I was about 6 months clean. I had taken my 6-month button, and I was, and my sponsor, when I finally got a sponsor, was like, dude, you're not sober. And I can access that feeling today of just having my heart just fall through the floor. But here I thought I had committed myself to a life of sobriety. And he's like, dude, you're absolutely abusing drugs right now. And then you go through that whole, but the doctor, and it took me another couple of months, I would say, before I was ready to come clean. To come clean to the doctors, that's a big one. And to come clean, I got into, I got in the first place because, there was a girl I was following who, I wanted to go out with, and she was sober. And she said, I'm not telling you what to do or what not to do. The one thing I ask you to do is come to a meeting with me so that you could see how I live. And that's when I figured it out. And she helped me kick the Klonopin. But it did take a while, man, because that old thing that you fall back on, there's a script here. This is legal. Somebody writes this. I take it to the pharmacy. It comes in a little bottle. It doesn't come in a baggie. And I don't have to worry about the cops chasing me. So, hey, this is okay.
Well, it's also like you had anxiety. You know what I mean? Like, you suffered from anxiety. I suffered from anxiety. The funny thing is, like, I still get anxious from time to time now, and I'm sure you get anxious from time to time now. But there's other ways to deal with it. One of my favorite things in the book that really like bugged me out is you kind of describe when you got off the Klonopin and you got off of everything, how you connected with the cats. Like when that left, like, and like you had psychedelic experiences where you were trying to kind of find this crazy connection, but when you took it all away, it's kind of like what we were saying about songwriting. Like, you can access this one shit when you're all fucked up, but then when you take everything away, you access this other thing, right?
Right. And it's interesting, man, because I will never discount what I consider to be the power of psychedelics. Psychedelics have a place. They really do. Where they did for somebody who's not an addict. But the problem was that the more I fish around to my comfort sources, the more because the flip side of this anxiety is identifying as an empath, which I do, and I feel things that others are putting out in a way too big way, and it messes me up. But the flip side of that is, once I was clean, what the animals were sending me. And I'm not saying this in terms of being an animal communicator or any of that shit. That's not the point. The point is being able to connect in the absence of what we're doing, language, of spoken language. So, and animals know when you're fronting. They absolutely know. That's what I feel guiltiest about now. You know, when you're working in an environment like animal sheltering, and animals are dying every single day, and maybe there was something I could have done if that thing that I have was intact, which it was totally severed. So in the name of that is one of the biggest reasons I got clean, because I knew it. I knew that there was this, I think I described, I haven't read the book in a while, but I think I described it as like gauze. Like there's this gauze energetically between you and the rest of the world. And animals fear you if that gauze is up. Animals they do not suffer fools, you know? So, yeah, that was one of the earliest signs, you know, besides like counting days and feeling like, you know, good about yourself and getting through the steps and everything. Having that thing back that the cats knew about me to begin with, right back in the early cat boy days, having that back and having it even better than I thought it could be, you know, was one of the earliest gifts of sobriety that I can access right now.
Right on. And how connected is that with higher power? Like this ability to like be this empath that actually, I mean, the shit that you talk about in the book is just incredible. The cat Rosetta Stone of I love you to the cat and all that stuff. Like, and I want you to, because like we have a very, very, very cat loving audience. Every week the show comes out. There's a dude in Iowa who every Friday he puts up a picture of his cat and he writes "waiting for tonight," and then, you know, 50 people in the Dopey Nation put up pictures of their cats and write waiting. So like, again, we started in the beginning of the interview, you were talking about that you didn't identify as a cat person. Like, how did it happen that they started communicating with you? And how did it happen that you were like, I want to read about cat behavior? Like, how does the rock and roll guy decide he's going to read about cat behavior?
Yeah, I never wanted to read about cat behavior. I don't want to read about anything, man. I am not that guy. But the thing was that, and it was interesting because you're surrounded by people, and I'm not saying this in any negative way about the guys in my shelter, because this was just common in most shelters. They just didn't get cats on the same sort of, here it is on a silver platter that dogs, for the most part, give you. And so it wasn't me identifying as a cat person, it was me identifying that this was a gift. I'm not saying that I have a gift. I'm saying the gift was that they picked me. And I do think that has a lot to do. Yes, it's the empath thing, but it's also the thing that I thought that made me a good writer and a good performer, a good singer, was because I had a nice sort of direct line to some place. It's hard. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, they picked me, and I didn't want them to die, and I didn't know shit about what made them tick on a more sort of, you know, physiological, biological way. And that got me into reading because there really wasn't anybody for me to ask, you know. And then the great thing was, because I all I know is that I'm an artist, I brought that to the party, and I was just like, well, it's like you were saying about when you were most in touch with your songwriter, no matter what came out, you're like, it's good, you know. I was able to basically access that part of me, bring it to the cat world, and nobody was there to tell me I was wrong. You know, if it worked, it worked. It worked. So, God, I don't even know what you asked me. I just went off.
That's okay. I think that's.
But I do have to say though that I, and I'm sure you have this as well, and I'm sure a lot of the guys in the nation will say this, that it was the animals in their lives that kept them from killing themselves, and you know, that relationship where they are wholly dependent on you. The idea that I would kill myself unintentionally, and my cats, Benny the cat in the book, would wind up in the shelter. And the thought of that devastated me. And I think that I've heard that story, especially since I wrote the book. And it was an unintended gift that all of a sudden addicts were coming out of the woodwork saying, yeah, that's my story too. But I think that there's this, I think, in a lot of ways, the flip side of saying we're anxious people is that we are, in a way, connected to the bigger sort of cosmic pathway, and it's too much, and we shut it. It's like, anybody who's been on a bad acid trip and you have that like moment where the seesaw just goes, look, and that door that was open now becomes scary, It's like, yeah, I'm talking out my neck right now, man.
No, you're talking about sensitivity to the infinite, right? You're talking about being sensitive to that ridiculous force of nature that makes you want to get into a blanket and take Klonopin and smoke weed and shoot heroin and be safe.
Absolutely.
And then how to live with having none of that shit. And then the magic power that kind of really manifested in you. And I say magic power because it's pretty magical what you do. You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty magical. Like, I watched your show, and just seeing the way you kind of approach an animal, it's pretty fucking magical and cool. Like, and I know that there's probably like a seed of it was theater based, and then coupled with psychedelics, and then coupled with recovery, and you get this whole recipe of like connection, and it's pretty fucking. It's magically cool. You know what I mean? Like,
thank you, man. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the best experiences I've had sober. I mean, I love my TV show. Again, a huge gift. But when I started going out and doing my sort of one-man show in theaters, we got shut down last year, but we were doing it throughout 2019, and we're probably going to do it again next year. But it was just basically telling my story and then showing how you can absolutely do anything that I do. And one of the things I was saying was that, because I always had this, I still have imposter syndrome. I wake up and I'm like, I don't have the letters after my name. I haven't gone to school for this shit. I don't. But the thing that I could bring to the party was as a songwriter, as a theater artist or whatever, the one thing that we're really, really good at is seeing people, making up a story about them, making it stick. And probably you've got a little bit of their life right, by the time you translate it to something else. And that is what I brought to the cats. I sat with them and I let them tell their stories. And that was it. God, man, the universe puts you in the right place at the right time. And I believe that now. It's taken me a long time.
I know what you mean. I struggle with that. I have a couple more questions. I'll go through them as quickly as I can. The first one is, you wrote this beautiful book about your relationship with your cat, about the relationship with drugs and alcohol and addiction and sobriety, and the relationship with you and your profession. And then after the book came out, you relapsed. What did the relapse look like? How did it happen?
And I've relapsed twice.
So tell us about relapse. It's good. Relapse stories are really, really important and good.
It was really, I got to say though, man, it really, and I've never told anybody this, but it really devastated me because I felt like I told my story in that book. And I thought that and now in looking back at it, I was like, fuck, man, I made it into a fairy tale. And now I got to, and I felt obligated to tell people who whether they were in the recovery community at large or just my audience in general, about relapse, because I needed to sort of undo what I thought was like, I didn't want anyone to read that book and be like, oh, well, this is how you do it. And once you do it, you've done it and you're good. Yay, happily ever after. And the bottom line is that I've been dealing with chronic pain, or I have been for many years. The entire run of my show, my back was broken. and it just kept getting worse. And, once one thing in your back is broken, all the other stuff breaks, and I didn't have the time because the recovery time from the surgery that I needed was like 6 months. And I'm not making excuses at all. I started to rely on painkillers of all stripes. And then there came that point again where if I wasn't getting enough, there was a guy over here who had this, or, you can get you can get Percocet on the street just as easily as from a doctor's office. I was getting stuff that was hospital grade. Anyway, both times I relapsed, it was just me starting with just really needing to kill pain so that I could operate. And then it became my addict, suddenly I'm sneaking around. Suddenly I'm not telling my wife or my shrink or my sponsor how many I'm taking. And once I got called out and once I called myself out, and it was both times it was various painkillers, but Percocet was really the thing that, taken in enough quantity, did what I needed it to do. So, but I'm fortunate in that I never completely pushed the recovery community to the side. I always, if I wasn't at meetings, I still kept something going. And then during my first relapse, I reached out to someone who I wanted to be my sponsor. I didn't have one at the time. He said yes and saved my ass because I wouldn't have done it. I would have just kept going.
When your relapse is like pain based, right? And it starts with, again, medication, like, how do you know when you cross the line? Like, does that protect the relapse at first, or is it the same kind of story as the Klonopin, basically?
For me, I have a really hard time holding up the mirror. I mean, I when I'm in it will take somebody else to. It was like my original sponsor saying, "Dude, you have to reset your sobriety date," and I fought him, and I fought him, and it took other fellows to call me out, and then I finally stopped fighting. It was the same thing with, I was hiding pills from my wife. My wife is a total normie. My wife doesn't, she does now, but she didn't understand. And when she realized I was hiding it and called me out, and I knew I had to do something, so, but it's because I have a bit of a, community around me. At that point, when I'm killing pain here, I'm not using, I can't function. I can't do my work. I can't get on an airplane. I can't funk. I can't sleep. I needed double fusion. I needed 2 fusions done in my back. And I thought that gave me an absolute visa to do whatever the hell I wanted to do when it came to pain meds. But it took, I cannot be trusted. I mean, I finally had the surgery a year ago, last week, and it's a beast. I mean, that surgery was a beast, and it's 6 months of recovery, and I was on everything, but I did it in the most sober way that I could do it. My wife dishes out the meds. I don't have access to anything, or didn't. I outed myself in meetings, to my sponsor, to whatever. It was a weird time, though. I'll tell you, this last year has been a weird one. You get high, you feel high, while you're also killing pain. And relaxing muscles and doing whatever. And it doesn't feel like the most sober thing in the world, but I'm off all that shit now. But
it's so much there, though. There's so much stuff right there that you just said to me. Like, number one, I'm jealous that you broke your back, that you could take pain pills, blah, blah, blah.
Right?
That's number one,
Totally.
right? Number one, I'm jealous. Number two, it's like you say you had to get rid of your clean date. And I'm like, and then my first reaction is, well, it doesn't matter because it's where we sit in the universe, but it's like ego and pride, and we hold on to this thing, and we earned it, and you don't want to give it away, and it's just as meaningful as it is meaningless. And for me, like, my ego is totally tied up in my clean date. You know what I mean? If like my sponsor,
totally.
And like that must have been really hard. And like it's really easy to like walk the walk when your back doesn't break. Like that's how my partner died. Like my partner died because he was doing fucking karate to impress his girlfriend, and he tore something in his back, and he wound up relapsing on pain medicine, which led him straight to everything, which is why you talking about your relapse is so important, because it saves people's lives. Because and then being honest and giving up your clean date and starting over, it's like it saves people's lives, and it saves your life to be accountable. It's a real thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I gotta say, and I know that we're short on time, but I am in a spot right this moment, and God knows there's been wreckage over the past year. I mean, for that 6 months after the surgery, for 4 of them, I was on a lot of stuff, and I got off it in the right way, totally under supervision, and got really, really depressed. Also because without travel, I feel like my legs have been cut off. I mean, or whatever. And I ate and I gained weight, and all that. But that said, my connection to the principles and the power of the 12 steps right now is, and I'm going to cry just even thinking about it, is stronger than it has ever been. I get it. I am now 20 years in and out of these rooms, and I finally fucking get it. I can't believe it took me this long. But I know that as long as I stay in it, as long as I stay in the steps, as long as I stay connected to alcoholics and addicts, I am going to be all right, or at least today.
Totally. Totally, and I appreciate that. Now I'm going to do something that's fucked up, and I hope you can handle it. Okay, I have a cat problem, and I just.
Are you serious?
It's real quick. Okay, we got this cat. We got this cat. We had another cat, and the cat had to leave because we were letting it be indoor outdoor, and it got attacked by raccoons, and so we gave it to my in-laws because it was spraying the basement. It couldn't stop spraying the basement, and my in-laws needed a therapy cat, and that worked out fine. And we got this kitten, okay? And we went on vacation as soon as we got the kitten, and we didn't take the kitten with us. And the in-laws visited, and the kitten started spraying our bed, okay? And so what we decided to do was we would lock the kitten in the closet. No, I'm kidding. We didn't lock the kitten. I'm kidding. I'm sorry. We decided we were going to keep the bedroom shut. And the kitten never sprayed anywhere else. And we got some of the aromatherapy stuff. We did everything we could do. And we treated the bed, and we power washed everything. Whenever that door opens, the cat needs to spray our bed. What the fuck do we do?
That's a short question. That's a little question.
When you want to come in, I'll fly you.
Right
I'll get you some. I'll fly you in, and I'll get you some vegan pastrami. What do you say?
There you go, man. Seriously, that's all it would take, man. I mean, I would say this. How old is the kitten now?
I think she's like 2 or 1.5, 2.
Oh, she's not a kitten anymore. Okay.
Maybe she's 1. Let's say she's 1, Jackson. 1. I think she's 1.
I mean, the thing is that she probably was scared when you guys left, and your scent is stronger in the bed than it is anyplace else in the house, besides maybe the couch, right? So those 2 places where we tend to be sedentary, And so it's almost this sort of, I call it the back-ended compliment. It's sort of this like, hey, we belong together. You know what I mean? I get comfort by mingling our scents. And it's something that, you know, as I was saying before about how food was the primal for me, that spraying for her is the primal now. You know, it's that if I feel anxious, I have to compliment the scent. So the idea here is this. You got to get her back in that bedroom in a controlled way. You don't do it by just opening the door and letting her go in there, and because you know what she's going to do. She's going to spray. So you would do things like using play, by leading her with a toy through the rest of the house into the bedroom, out of the bedroom, and so normalize that. And it's not about the bedroom itself now; it's about the boundary. It's about that doorway. And so you normalize that action of going in and out, having her catch the toy on the bed, praising her for that, ending those playtimes in a nice meal, and the meal happens in the bedroom. Just doing things that she can reassociate what it is to feel safe in that sort of the seat of the whole territory, but doing it in a way where you control the ins and outs. So you're just not setting her up for failure and setting yourself up for having piss on your bed.
You're amazing. You're an amazing man. Amazing. I really, really, I cannot thank you enough for giving us your time.
Honestly, really wonderful talking to you, man. This is the first chance I've had, honestly, to talk in a dedicated way about addiction for a larger audience. So thank you for that.
So that was Jackson Galaxy. And my dad didn't get to hear him, but he was great. And I need to apologize that there were so many beeps and shit on the show. God damn it. I am prepared to use the new gear. Yes, I get the irony that the phone rang while I was talking about all the fucking noises.
Yes.
And the cops
Usually
are
I
outside.
get blamed for the noises.
Oh, yeah, that was the thing, is that my dad was right next to
Yeah.
the telephone. Why don't you explain how that worked?
Well, when David was doing the interview with Jackson Galaxy, I knew that he didn't want me to listen to the interview, but I also knew how upset he gets when the phone rings. So I sat in a different part of the apartment, and I had the phone near me, and bingo, sure enough, it rang, and then I turned it off immediately. Then no one even heard it. I don't think it interfered with the program at all.
You know, one thing I didn't ask him that I found fascinating is he has this way of communicating with cats.
Yeah, it's amazing. If that's
He does
true.
this thing where he gets close to the cat and he thinks, I love you, and blinks slowly, and the cat blinks back.
Wow.
And that's Dopey Nation. I should have had him explain this to you. If you're having a hard time communicating with your cat, go slow up to the cat and think, I blink, love, blink, you, blink.
Yeah, that's
And really mean it. And the cat will know what you're telling them. Isn't that incredible, Dad?
That sounds more than incredible.
You don't believe
It
it?
sounds wacky to
You don't
me.
believe to the feline hippie mind meld?
No, but go for it. Yeah, you give it a shot.
Well, I think you will love Jackson Galaxy. He's a self-proclaimed food addict as well.
He's overweight?
He's not overweight now, but he was up to 450 pounds and he had the
Wow.
gastric bypass surgery.
Wow.
So, you want to read an email?
Sure.
All right. This
Is this a good one or a bad one?
is a good one.
Oh, okay.
I think you can
You're not gonna-
emails
you're-
and reviews.
Oh, okay. This is an email. Yeah. All right. I got it. Listen, I have trouble with reviews and emails.
This is from the woman who coined the phrase alt recovery.
Oh, did she write a new one? This is a new one?
New one.
That's huge. How long is this thing?
It's not that long. Just read
This
it.
is from Jamie. This has been spinning around in my head for months now. Trying to gather the fragments and tie them all together was a challenge until I heard Joe Schrank say that Dopey Nation was a soft place to land. Meg Keeney pointing out that we don't all have the same level of addiction was another that got the wheels turning. To have watched it grow has really warmed my heart. Our tribe of misfits with leaders from so many recovery angles. The heart seems to be more like the 4 agreements than the 12 steps. I think in alt recovery, we should track the time of the journey and not restarting the clock for bums. What's that, Dave?
Bumps.
For bumps or not starting the clock because of MAT.
I think you should also not restart the clock for bums, too.
Okay. And by the way, you're going to have to tell me what all this means after I read it.
Okay, we could decipher it afterwards.
Yes, please. In abstinence-based programs, relapse is considered after one use. In July of last year, listening to my favorite expert, Dr. Nzinga, she breaks down the medical definition for relapse, and it is much kinder. At the time, I felt it could be very dangerous to some people to hear. Upon re-listening to the episode of In Recovery, How to Avoid Pain Meds, I encourage everyone to look up the 11 criteria for diagnosis of substance use disorder. If you meet 2 of the criteria, it is considered a relapse. Recovery is a seed that gets planted and it grows, sometimes without you knowing it's happened. As Dopey Dress says, fuck shame, dust yourself off, be honest with another addict. Get to the root. Continue the journey. Don't reset your recovery clock. Reset an abstinence clock if you keep one. But more than anything, be kind to yourself. The best lessons are sometimes learned the hard way. Growth is painful and beautiful.
Keep going.
As far as the lady in New Hampshire who never said Vanguard but coined alt recovery goes, I have exited my treatment program and am less than 2 weeks away from making the jump. I was only encouraged to do so by my therapist and not the prescribing doctor. Unfortunately, these programs have a bottom line. Another thing I wish I would change. Dopey, the podcast about drugs, addiction, and dumb shit. Rope this dope. I have so much love for the Dopey Nation. Stay strong. And fucking toodles for Chris.
And that's Jamie. Now, what are your questions?
There's so many questions.
What are they?
There's so many questions. So, is Jamie the woman who came up with the idea of alt recovery?
She named it alt recovery.
Right. And the idea of alt recovery seems to be a brilliant idea, but she came up with the name.
Yes.
Alt recovery. All right. So, here, who's Meg?
Meg does the Addictionary podcast.
Right.
I don't think the Addictionary podcast still exists, but that's something that Meg said. Or maybe it does. Meg is on and off with the Addictionary podcast. She says that pointing out that we don't have all the same levels of addiction was another thing that keeps the wheels turning. That's something that Meg said.
So what's 4 Agreements?
4 Agreements is a book called The 4 Agreements. It's a beautiful book. You want to read it? Some New Age spiritualism stuff.
Oh, I got a book club.
It's very good. Very good book.
All right, so what do you get from this email?
I like hearing from Jamie. What do you get from
I mean, how is she? I mean, because I didn't understand the last
I think
part.
she's about to get off Suboxone, make the jump off Suboxone.
Is that what she meant? Okay.
Or marijuana, or neither, or both, or something. She's very vague. I think Jamie's going to jump off Suboxone and perhaps marijuana. I think Jamie's point, my favorite part of Jamie's point, is that recovery can come to somebody kind of in an unexpected way, and it can grow without even knowing it's growing. And like, if you relapse, that doesn't mean that the thing that you learned in your recovery is taken away just because your abstinence was.
Well, it's a very positive. Absolutely, yeah. Okay.
What do you get from this thing?
I was trying to. By the way, you didn't comment that I read it very well.
You didn't read it that well.
I read it. I was trying so hard to concentrate on reading it slowly.
That you retained nothing.
I didn't understand anything she was saying. But she's okay though right now in terms of what you're thinking. You're saying she is on her own alternate road for recovery. That's pretty much what she's saying.
She's saying that she's working very hard to have a road to recovery.
Okay.
And I think it's awesome. And I think it's funny that she said, I bet you she did never say Vanguard. Because that's something I always tell people, that Jamie said that we are in the vanguard of the alt recovery movement. And she's like, I never said Vanguard. But I say she did, because that sounds better to me. Do you like Vanguard?
No, it sounds like a good word. Yeah,
me too.
And by the way, we own the altrecoverymovement.com. Which I have no clue what that means, except that I own it.
Well, we have some people working on some art for the alt recovery movement. Maybe there'll be an alt recovery movement mural. What do you think about that?
What about a website?
I thought you bought the website.
I know, but there isn't any website.
There are doctors
Just the
out in the
name.
field at this moment thinking about how we should concoct an alt recovery book. We are thinking. The wheels are turning. The idea is that there are.
I will be very happy to donate my altrecovery.com website to the alt recovery movement.
Well, that's terrific. The idea is that there's a million ways into addiction,
Yeah.
and there are an infinite number of ways out of it. But the most important way out of it is just doing something.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. It's like Jamie is obviously incredibly active in getting out of it. If you are active in getting out of it, you are part of the alt recovery movement. If you are a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, you are a part of the alt recovery movement. If you are running marathons instead of fucking getting high, you are a member of the alt recovery movement. If you want to be a member of the alt recovery movement and you're doing anything to put your recovery ahead of your addiction, then you're a part of it. The scary part is when you are using and you say you're part of the alt recovery movement, that's when it gets scary, and that's when I get worried that people will die. You know what I mean? Like,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
What?
That she's pretty much saying, all right, if you relapse, just do it. You start again. But we got this problem with fentanyl is that that relapse could be the end.
well, obviously, if you die, you don't get to do the alt recovery movement.
Exactly.
Now, in other news,
Yes.
moving on. Now, people have joked in the past about doing perhaps an Al-Anon podcast.
It's not happening. Let's put that to rest.
Well,
it's not happening. There's not, and I like it. It's Al is on. How do you say it?
It's not Al is on.
No.
The idea is because there's a program.
Al-Anon. Yeah, Al-Anon.
You like it as Alan
Al-Anon.
on. But the play on words is that there's a fellowship called Al-Anon.
I know that.
That's the play on words.
I knew that.
So if we're going to
That
do a
was
little
funny.
Al-Anon bit, Al-Anon
Yeah.
bit, let's start with the most important thing, which is Alan on the Knicks.
Oh, they're doing great.
How about yesterday?
Super overtime win.
What do you think about Derrick Rose?
He is doing very well.
Steady.
Very
How about
well.
fucking Payton? Do you see
he
you see that in the fourth quarter?
I dropped him. I picked up Bullock, 6 threes last night because Burke's out.
The thing about Payton, he gets to the basket.
He can't finish.
He just can't put the ball in the hoop. Why not? He also does a lot of stupid fouls. However, he's creative getting to the basket.
He is super getting to the basket.
But
He
what-
can't put the ball in the basket once he gets there. Anyway, no, I'll tell you, they're doing very well. They really are.
Okay, we're talking about the last time the Knicks were exciting was probably 1999.
Yeah, a
So-
long time ago.
Has it ever been as exciting as this in the past 20 years, 21 years?
Well, remember Linsanity?
Linsanity was very exciting.
Yeah.
So how do you compare this with Linsanity?
Well, the team wasn't that great with Linsanity. This team, we have to see what's going to happen. They are still missing important ingredients. They really do need a point guard, and they really do need a real center. Though Noel and Taj Gibson, they're doing a good job filling in right now. I don't think Robinson is going to be as good as anybody thinks he's going to be.
I don't think so either. Who do you? I mean, like,
Hey, Dopey Nation, do you think Dopey Nation cares about this?
I thought Clint Capella was a pretty major center.
He can't hit a free throw, though.
I know you always hate that, but he
I
had
hate
23 rebounds,
Oh, no, he was unstoppable, but he can't hit a free
and he
throw.
has that stupid blonde patch in his hair.
Yeah, is that real or is that fake?
It's definitely not real.
Oh, okay.
Now, Al-Anon.
It's not happened. There isn't any Al-Anon. By the way, did you get a bad review recently?
You're dying to read the bad
No,
review.
I wanted to comment. And we're talking about the bad review that I want to read, not the bad review that you want me to read.
You don't want to read it just for old time's sake?
I'm not reading the bad review.
Why don't you like reading that review?
Because the review says things that are absolutely true and things that are absolutely false, and they put it in the same review, and I do not want to conflate them.
It's a good word, conflate.
Yeah, I just made that up. Actually, it's a real word.
That is the proper use of the word conflate.
Oh, good.
Hold on. The internet here is so slow. Here we go. Here we go.
That's
Here,
interesting.
read this one.
Which one? That's
Yeah, all right,
right.
you want to read? Do you want to read the new bad review?
yeah. Well, that's the one that I think
Yeah.
you can have a good discussion about. Oh, all right. Host blows 1 star. That's pretty
Host blows.
Is that his name?
No, that's his description.
Oh, by VC at 0. Okay.
Yes.
This is what he writes. Pretty much getting behind Dave trying to not have to work or do a real job. Gross. All right, so David just told the story of getting up at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, driving into Manhattan, walking all the way down to Katz's, and that's one of his jobs. And the other job is the amount of effort he's putting in to create Dopey. And for...
Hold up. Before you say another word.
See, I'm getting angry.
What I want to know is, what do you think motivated this guy to put this review up?
I don't know. I didn't even think about that. Why would he put it up?
I don't know. I work very hard on Dopey.
Exactly.
I think it's because I say in the ads, help me not work. Yeah. I say help me not have a job. But the truth is, I kill myself for both jobs.
Exactly.
I surely do.
Yeah,
And,
maybe you should reword that.
and I think what's the proper way to word it? Give me money.
Support my creative
Vision.
creativity. Yeah, not because I want to quit working.
The truth is, I don't want to work anymore. I mean,
Oh, this is work.
but you
Wait
know
a
what?
minute.
Wasn't there an expression?
Yes, if you enjoy what you do, you've never worked a day in your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I enjoy both my jobs, but I would really like to
You
get.
certainly complain a lot about the.
I enjoy complaining too.
Yes.
If you could pay me to complain, that would be the
That
sweetest
would've
job
been-
of all.
That's a great job.
So I say VC at 0 blows, sir. You blow. I don't know why you did this. I don't know why you wanted to come down on my fucking head.
It takes a heck of a lot of effort to put Dopey together.
But I'm going to
I'll
tell you
it's
this.
work.
I'm going to tell you this.
Yeah.
It is a lot of work, but more interestingly enough, that's not a real grammatically correct phrase.
Well, that
I'm
never
gonna
stopped you before.
More interestingly enough, I know what I find really interesting is that I didn't get angry about this review.
You always get angry with a 1-star review.
I thought it was funny. Host blows. I mean, I really kind of thought it was funny. And like pretty much
I was upset with that review. I mean, I didn't think that was very nice.
you love the bad reviews.
No, I don't.
He calls me. He goes, Dave. He goes, you see the new review.
Well, I knew because I'm always afraid that you are going to get angry and start saying terrible things to the person, which I don't want you to say. You like this guy. See?
It's not that I like him. I think that I've gotten to a new place in my spirituality and my recovery, in that it is not getting me upset. And you know what I'm practicing right now?
amazing.
I'm practicing acceptance. That VC at O can think I blow.
That's
his business.
That's pretty damn. That's amazing.
It's not my
This is
business.
a major breakthrough for you.
I know how much work I do.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I can do for VC at O except pray for him, which I will. Namaste, VC at O. Do you know what namaste means, Dad?
Tell me.
It means the light in me recognizes the light in VC at O.
I'm not going to say anything like putting my fingers in my mouth and go. I'm not
So the light in you does not recognize the light in VC at O?
I recognize that he's not understanding how much effort it takes to be creative. And if you don't want to call it work, okay, don't.
And then this guy, Ermergerd, which probably means oh my God, says, God damn it, 1-star review. Dave, get your audio figured out. I swear to God, I felt like I was listening to the podcast from your molar.
Yeah, there was one episode, I don't know when he listened, where the sound was bad for, I don't know if it was the whole thing or just part of it.
No, just the ads were bad. In one.
Maybe,
That was
maybe.
it. Now, more importantly, Dad, before we go,
Yes.
I like it, for whatever reason, when you criticize the show. Have you been listening to the show?
Yeah, you're putting on so much content because you're not working. I mean, you're putting on so much content.
No, we've taken a break. We're not doing that
then
anymore.
I caught up. I caught up with Rich Roll. What's his name?
You listen to Rich Roll.
Right. How does he earn a living nowadays? I mean, what does he do? He's
an author. He's a professional vegan, professional athlete.
He can't be. You don't earn money being an Ironman athlete.
This is not criticizing me. So you're
No,
saying
it was a question.
why doesn't Rich Roll get a job? Is that what you're saying?
I'm asking that a good interviewer would have said, by the way.
That is your question about every person on the show.
Yeah.
How is this guy making a living? That is. My dad has 3 questions. So does this guy have a family? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is, so how is this guy making a living? I don't know what question number 3 is.
I don't know either, but all right. So
you're saying my interview wasn't good because I didn't ask how he generates money.
I remember Dopey Nation. I didn't listen to what's his name? Jackson Galaxy. Did you ask him how he got his name?
No.
So
I know. Listen, Mr. Al-Anon podcast. You why don't you start a podcast? And the first question is, so how do you make a living?
No, I'm not going to do that.
So what's your family life like?
It's pretty good. Anyway, listen, I'm not criticizing, but you asked me to criticize.
So from now on, I'm going to try to ask every guest.
Only if it's appropriate. The guy tells you he did 5 of these incredible races in 5 days. It's like unbelievably amazing.
5 and 7 days.
Okay, 5 and 7 days. It's amazing. Absolutely. And he writes a book about it.
He has 3 books. He has a company.
He has 5 kids.
He has a company that makes cheese out of nuts.
Oh, then that's how did we not
and
know
he
that?
sells. He has a what's the word when you make a proprietary blend of.
So that's how he's.
I think he has something, and he has a podcast, a big podcast.
So then,
not a little rinky-dink shit like Dopey. He has a big podcast.
All right,
the Rich Roll podcast.
Did you say any of this in the interview?
Well, we talked about his podcast and his book,
but not his proprietary.
I mentioned it.
Oh, all right. Well,
sounds like you weren't listening very well.
I wasn't paying attention.
So that's your criticism. I should ask about money and family.
No,
what else?
That is not
what
my
else
criticism.
You got?
No, that's not my. And you certainly. I keep telling you shouldn't curse so much. If you're ever going to be on real radio, you're not allowed to curse. I don't think.
So you're saying now I should stop cursing?
Well, and when it's appropriate, I guess you can. But most of the time, you should, especially if you get angry at people, you shouldn't do
I didn't get angry at anybody.
No, you were really good today. I'm just amazed. 2 1-star reviews, and you didn't go bonkers.
Do you want to read a nice review before we go?
Is there one out there?
Yes. Here.
1010, 5-star?
Yeah.
By Lily 137. Oh, yeah. Well, I heard episode 143 the first time I went to treatment in January of 2019 and broke my heart and fell in love all in one. I've had a rough in and out of recovery, but since getting clean again, I've started listening from episode 1. I'm currently on episode 96 and have 414 days clean. I listen to Dopey every day, and I'd like to say it is a large part of my recovery. I love what you're doing. Keep it up and stay strong, Dopey Nations. Toodles, Linz L. All right,
That's
beautiful.
Nice. All right, so Dopey Nation, if you're listening, leave a 5-star review, write something nice. Maybe my dad will read it. Don't write anything mean.
Yeah, he's being good.
Namaste, Dopey Nation. The light in me recognizes the light in you. I would love, listen, if you wrote a bad review, write an email. Because I'm very curious, like, why you did it, what were you thinking about, what possessed you?
Yeah, maybe there's constructive things.
No, I don't want to know about that.
I
don't want any constructive.
Nothing constructive.
No, I just want to know why you would leave a 1-star review. More importantly, I would like crazy Dopey stories. I don't want constructive criticism. I want crazy, funny Dopey stories or explanations why you leave bad reviews. Anything you want to add, Dad?
No. I think it's been very nice. I hope the Dopey Nation is good out there. And stay strong. And toodles for Chris.
Yes, stay strong, Dopey Nation. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Cormac, for all of his tireless work in Reddit. The Reddit world has gone a little bit slow, so that's my challenge to the Reddit community. Otherwise, stay strong, Dopey Nation, and fucking toodles for Chris.
I want to take a walk around the world. do me any good. Until I get some money in my pocket, then I guess I'll just have to walk around my neighborhood. But I wanna be good so bad. Wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. Bad desire's all I ever had. And I wanna take a ride up in the sky. Watch this aeroplane just pass me by. And I wanna see a Lear jetliner take a dive, just to show all of these people what it means to be alive. But I wanna be good so bad. Wanna be so good, so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. Bad desire's all I ever had. And my shadow's getting smaller and smaller. And it's time to where I stand. Shadow's getting smaller and smaller. And it's time to where I stand. And I wonder would they pay it any mind when I leave this busted city far behind. I'll take the high road, however far it winds, because peace and love are very, very, very hard to find. And I wanna be good so bad. Wanna be good so bad, so bad. I wanna be good so bad. Bad desire's all I ever had. Damn it, all these suckers make me mad. And it's all I ever had. And it's all I ever had. And these suckers make me mad, and I want to call my dad, and it's all I ever had, and it's all I ever had, and it's all I ever had. And it's all I ever had. And these suckers make me mad, and it's all I ever had, and I want to call my dad, and it's all I ever had, and it's all I ever had. And it's all I ever had.